Given its importance on the Velvet Underground and Nico's debut, it is almost inconceivable to think that Sunday Morning Nearly Didn't exist at all. After listening to the album's first acetate opened by I'm Waiting for the Man, producer Tom Wilson believed the record lacked an identifiable single and asked Lou Reed and John Cale to write a new song for Nico to sing. Written by Reed and Cale at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning after an all-nighter in Manhattan, the song certainly delivered on Wilson's order. Reed took the lead, relegating Nico to background vocals. In the studio, Cale discovered the Celesta that would give Sunday Morning its eeriness. Beneath the veneer of this beautiful song is the feeling of anxiety and unrest. Andy Warhol challenged Reed to write a song about paranoia and Reed responded with the line, "Watch out, the world's behind you." Only the Velvets could make a song both pretty and distressing, too. I'm Waiting for the Man. The ability to shock with taboo subjects such as buying drugs has waned today, but until 1967's I'm Waiting for the Man, music was devoid of an overtly decadent tale such as this. It represents an aesthetic high point for the Velvet Underground, sonically and lyrically. Witness the rhythm section's mimicry of a train heading to the intersection of 125th Street and Lexington Avenue, East Harlem. First thing you learn is that you always got to wait, Reed laments. But it's all good, his man's got the goods, and, to make up for his lack of punctuality, he gives him a taste. Reed's real triumph, though, is that with I'm Waiting for the Man he created cinema verite in rock. Its legacy, then, was creating a world in which any topic was now permissible in music, and that illicit trip to score drugs made for or joyride. 3. Heroin is the Velvet Underground's masterpiece, 7 minutes of pseudo-spiritualism, in which a poet intones on the divinity of his addiction. The experience of listening to Heroin is so compelling and excruciating that you want to be part of it as much as you want to help him. Reed is supported by a stellar supporting cast consisting of John Cale's shrieking viola and Mo Tucker mimicking heartbeats on drums. The song is built around the tension between an accelerating beat and the guitar's chords that toll to a real-time description of an opium-induced state. While the Beatles were singing that all you need is love, Reed was declaring that all he needed was drugs, and redefining how rock should sound in the process. The Velvet Underground in Venus in Furs, a film by Piero Helixer, New York, November 1965. Lou Reed Center. Photograph Adam Ritchie Ed Ferns 4. Venus in Furs. Venus in Furs is startling in form and content. The title is taken from Leopold von Sacher-Masoch's novella of the same name, a copy of which Reed apparently found on the street. To soundtrack this tale of sadomasochism, the group put down a droning, noisy, and brutal sound that would go on to embody the Velvet Underground and Nico. Cale's shrill electric viola pierces the skin of a maelstrom consisting of ringing, trebly guitars and Mo Tucker's primal bass drum and tambourine shakes. Whiplash Girl Child in the Dark Clubs and Bells, Your Servant, Don't Forsake Him, Strike, Dear Mistress, and Cure His Heart, Reed intones, demonstrating his poetic flair as both voyeur and narrator. Reed may have retold someone else's story. Von Sacher-Masoch's book is written from experience, but Venus in Furs remains peerless to this day. 5. White Light White Heat. Much like Heroin, White Light White Heat's composition imitates the rush of drug taking. In this case, Cale's fuzzy bass solo is the exhilaration after methamphetamine consumption. The track finds Reed listing off the mental discomfort his beloved powder causes, and yet it's delivered with an insatiable giddiness. The call and response between Reed and the backing vocals Cale and Morrison make for a catchy refrain, and if you strip away the proto-punk elements of dissonance and distortion, the song follows a typical rock roll beat. Reed's self-destruction and nihilism would take another 10 years to come to mainstream attention through punk, but in 1967 the vision was solely their own. After White Light White Heat, all that the Velvet Underground had to compete with was the inevitable come-down and the ignominy of the crash. 6. Sister Ray. Legend has it that when the Velvet Underground recorded Sister Ray in one take, the recording engineer left the studio, complaining that he didn't want to listen to what the band were creating. When the band finished, they had marked the origin of noise rock through a 17.5-minute jam that turned rock roll into what Reed described as a scene of total debauchery and decay. The Velvet Underground matched their ambition on their debut album with Heroin, but Sister Ray, White Light White Heat's epic finale, catalogues each member's musicianship, fleshing out their raw sensibilities and then stretching them out to a point of no return. With no overdubs on the production, the group revolutionized rock music through the pure onslaught of their playing. Reed and Morrison laid down guitars with serrated feedback, Cale stuck his organ through a guitar amplifier, and Moe Tucker pounded a beat like she was knocking on a chamber door. Sister Ray's decadent edge reveals itself more and more with repeated listens. Reed's disjointed tale of sex, gun crime, and looking for the main line to shoot heroin was a dark counterpoint to the Summer of Love. 7. Pale Blue Eyes. By the time the Velvet Underground recorded their self-titled album, they seemed to have pushed rock to its ultimate boundaries. The world wasn't ready for their ingenuity, and their failure to make headway commercially caused friction between Reed and Cale about the future direction of the band. Cale wanted to be weird, Red wanted to be beautiful, which led to Cale's departure and Doug Yule stepping in as his replacement. The Velvet Underground Mark II made a stylistic shift towards intimacy, with Reed seeking redemption on songs such as Beginning to See the Light and Jesus. However, the album's emotional centerpiece, Pale Blue Eyes, comes before them and ranks as Reed's best love song. Sometimes I feel so happy, sometimes I feel so sad, Reed says to his lover. Morrison's subtle guitar and Tucker's tambourine create a gentle foil for him to confess his feelings. But Reed's tribute isn't as simple as it suggests. The bittersweet clincher comes later, with the revelation the fact that you are married only proves you're my best friend. His delivery comes with a sigh of defeat. For Reed, at least for now, absolution would have to wait. 8. What Goes On. Along with Beginning to See the Light, What Goes On is the Velvet Underground's bona fide rocker, a jewel of chugging multi-tracked guitars, a blissful solo and an organ sound so beatific that Talking Heads lifted it for the end of Once in a Lifetime and Stereolab made an entire discography out of it. The Velvet Underground may have focused on melody and candor with their third album, but Reed's obsession with mind states, him going up, him going down, and anxiety 1 minute born 1 minute doomed still holds sway here. Reed's lyrics slightly cribbed from the Beatles' song of the same name found on Rubber Soul, though that is where the comparison ends. Reed's words serve as the prelude to the song's transcendent nature, and this song revels in the energy contained by the band's tight performance. Euphoric and hard-edged, it proved that when the Velvet Underground wanted to be less experimental, they could rock as successfully as the Byrds or anyone else across the continent. 9. Rock and Roll. Taken from their fourth album Loaded, Rock and Roll is the Velvet Underground's feel-good anthem and one that can lift the mood of any listener. The chord changes and gliding solo before the climax contain enough euphoria to throw a TV set out of the window and into a car windscreen. While Rock and Roll is ostensibly the story of Jenny's moment of salvation, the finding deliverance from some fine music, it is also Reed's and perhaps yours eulogy to the genre, taken from personal experience. Rock and roll, he said, is about me. If I hadn't heard rock roll on the radio, I would have had no idea there was life on this planet. To that end, rock and roll is for all the kids who long to escape from suburban and small-town inertia, even if it's only for 5 minutes. Trust Lou, it's alright. Now. 10. Sweet Jane. When the Velvet Underground released Loaded, the group existed in name only, following co-founder Reed's departure 3 months earlier. With Sweet Jane, Reed left de facto leader Yule with a template for a potential pop hit, and Yule rewrote the song, editing the bridge out, much to the displeasure of Reed. Ironically, the version played throughout 1970s American AM radio, from Reed's live album, Rock Roll Animal, went on to present the Velvet Underground to a new generation of listeners previously unaware of the landmark recordings and genius. The real version, brought to light by the Peel Slowly and See box set in 1995, proves to be the first great pop song Reed wrote as the chief songwriter. Sweet Jane's saccharine quality owes much to the notes and harmonies of the chorus, and the bridge Heavenly Wine and Roses seems to whisper to her when he smiles ranks as the finest vocal Reed ever recorded for the Velvet Underground.